My name is Calanthe, and the night I caught my husband red-handed did not begin with fireworks. It began with silence. A silence so heavy it pressed on the walls and made the hallway breathe. The house smelled like candle wax and citrus cleaner. The kind of perfect scene Gavin liked when clients came by. He texted me an hour earlier. Running late. Do not wait up. I read it twice, felt the small sting of habit, and set my phone face down on the counter. He said those words often. They were supposed to mean dedication. Lately they meant distance. Rain started. A polite rain, tapping the windows like a guest who did not want to come inside. I made tea. I told myself to sleep, but the tea went cold untouched, and the quiet grew louder. At 11 a sound broke the calm. A soft scrape. A muffled laugh that did not belong to the television. My body knew before my mind did. I set my cup down without a clink and moved toward the hallway like a shadow slipped from its owner. Our bedroom door was not closed. A line of warm lamplight bled onto the floorboards. My hand rested on the frame. I heard Gavin's voice, low and easy, the way he spoke at outdoor dinners when charm poured like wine. Another voice answered, a woman's voice, breathy with the confidence of not fearing discovery. I stepped inside. They did not see me at first. He was half-turned, shirt open, the silver watch I bought him catching the light. Her dress trailed on the carpet like a ribbon cut from a gift that was not mine. On the nightstand lay a small velvet box lid open, a necklace shining against dark satin. Diamonds. I had asked for a vacuum that month. He had said the budget was tight. Gavin's head lifted. His smile collapsed. The woman pulled the sheet to her chest and stared as if I were a story someone told to frighten children. My heart did not race. It slowed as if every second wanted to be counted. He spoke first. Calanthe, this is not. Stop, I said quietly. The word landed between us like glass. He closed his mouth. I walked to the dresser and picked up the velvet box. I turned the necklace so the stones caught the lamp and threw thin stars on the ceiling. You chose well, I said. You always were a careful shopper. The woman's lips tightened. She looked at him as if asking how brave she needed to be. He did not answer. His eyes were on me, measuring the storm. I set the box down and looked at the mirror, not at them. My reflection was a stranger I recognized. Hair pulled back. No makeup. A rope tied at the waist like a line I would not cross. The woman in the glass could seem fragile. She was not. Gavin tried again, voice gentle, rehearsed. This is a misunderstanding. We had wine after the launch. She needed a place to rest. I did not want to wake you. I lifted a hand, palm out. Do not waste lies I have already heard. He flinched. The woman found her dress and began to gather herself carefully, like someone folding a map during an earthquake. She whispered, I can go. He nodded without looking at her. She passed me close enough that I smelled the perfume I once wore, and threw away when he said it made me smell expensive in the wrong way. When the door closed, we were two people in a room full of evidence. The sheet, the watch, the scent in the air. The necklace like a confession. I reached to the nightstand, took my notebook from the bottom drawer, and opened to a blank page. I wrote the date. I wrote the time. I wrote one sentence in slow strokes. I saw what he chose. Gavin watched my pen. Cal, he said, using the nickname that used to soften me. Listen to me. Work has been a furnace. I made mistakes. I can fix this. We can fix this. I did not look up. I wrote the name from the gift receipt tucked under the box lid. I wrote the store. I wrote the amount. I underlined it once. Diamonds. Budget tight. He stepped closer, careful. We have history, he said. We have a home, a life. You do not throw a life away because of a bad night. I closed the notebook. One night does not buy diamonds, I said. One night does not teach a voice to answer yours like it has learned the path. His shoulders sagged. He sat on the edge of the bed, the reckless boy gone, the calculating man looking for exits. He reached for my hand. I moved it to my side. My body felt the memory of loving him and did not obey it. Please, he whispered, and the word surprised me, because it was the first honest thing he had said. Please do not ruin me. I almost laughed. Not loudly. The kind of almost laugh that tastes like metal. You are worried about ruin, I said. I am worried about truth. Outside, the rain thickened. The house listened. In that dense pause, I realized something important. Catching him was not the end. Catching him was the beginning. Rage is a spark. It flares bright and burns out. I needed something that lasted. I needed a fire in a hearth, controlled and relentless. I stepped away from the bed. Leave, I said. Take the guest room. At dawn, take your things for the week. Do not speak to me unless a lawyer tells you to. Do not touch me unless a paramedic does. Do not delete anything. He stood, the old arrogance reassembling itself like a mask picked up off the floor. You cannot dictate terms, he said. This is my house. Our house, I said. And you are a guest tonight. We stared at each other until the seconds went brittle. He grabbed his phone, his wallet, the wrong courage, and left the room. The house exhaled. I sat on the edge of the bed he had warmed with a story that did not include me and opened my notebook again. I wrote a list. Bank statements. Camera footage. Receipts. Witnesses. Then I wrote 4 words that steadied my hands. Lawful. Precise. Public. Final. My phone buzzed on the dresser. A message from an unknown number. No greeting. No signature. Only a sentence that made my heart climb into my throat. If you want proof he has done this before, meet me tomorrow. I am done covering for him. I stared at the glow of that message in the dark. Somewhere in this city, someone had watched him build a second life and was ready to hand me the matches. I whispered one word into the quiet room that still smelled of perfume and rain. Tomorrow. The message glowed on my phone long after the rain stopped. If you want proof he has done this before, meet me tomorrow. I am done covering for him. I turned the phone in my hands, reading the words again and again. A stranger knew. A stranger had seen. The thought terrified me and steadied me at the same time. When Gavin came down for coffee the next morning, his face was carefully arranged. His shirt pressed, his hair perfect, his tone casual. He asked about the weather, about errands, as if the night before had been erased by sunrise. I answered with one-word replies. His eyes searched my face, but I gave him nothing. By 8 he left for work. I locked the door behind him. Then I grabbed my journal, my coat, and the phone with the anonymous message. The cafe was small, tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore that smelled of dust and ink. I sat by the window, nerves alive under my skin. At exactly 9, a woman slid into the chair across from me. She was older than me, late 30s maybe, with sharp eyes and a blazer that spoke of long nights and too many compromises. She didn't waste time. My name is Evelyn. I worked with Gavin. My pulse thudded. Worked. She nodded. Until I realized working with him meant covering for him. He has been careless for years, Calanthe. The woman you saw? She isn't the first. She isn't even the 5th. Her words landed heavy. Why tell me now? Because last night I decided I would not lie for him again. He asked me to delete hotel bills, to reroute charges, to claim business dinners that were not business. I kept the receipts. She slid a folder across the table. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were copies of invoices, expensive hotels, jewelry, dinners, all dated neatly. His name signed on every one. I flipped through the pages, my chest tightening. Some went back years. You could take this to court, she said. You could end him. But you need more than paper. You need timing. If you go too soon, he'll spin it. He always spins it. Her eyes caught mine steady. Make sure when you strike, there's no room for him to talk his way out. I thanked her, my voice rough. She left quickly, not waiting for gratitude. Back home, I spread the papers across the table. The weight of them pressed into me. Every dinner I had eaten alone, every night I sat by the window waiting, every excuse about long hours. It was all there, written in numbers and signatures. When Gavin came home that evening, I was waiting in the kitchen. He leaned in to kiss my cheek, but I moved aside. His smile faltered. Something wrong? He asked, his tone rehearsed. I held up one receipt. Did the board enjoy their dinner at the Ritz? Or was it only you and her? His eyes flicked to the paper. For the first time his mask cracked. Where did you get that? Does it matter? I asked quietly. He straightened, his voice cold now. You don't understand how this works. Business is about appearances. Sometimes those appearances include arrangements. Arrangements, I repeated, the word sour on my tongue. Don't be dramatic, Cal, he snapped. You have a roof, a life. Stop digging where you don't belong. I felt something in me harden. It's my life too, and I belong exactly here. I tucked the receipt back into the folder, my grip firm. I'm done being quiet, Gavin. The next time you tell me I don't belong, remember this. You taught me how to take notes. His eyes narrowed, but I turned away. I would not give him the last word. That night I sat with my journal. On the blank page I wrote in bold strokes. It wasn't one night. It was years. He thought I wouldn't see. He thought I wouldn't count. But I am counting now. Because just before midnight my phone buzzed again. Another message from Evelyn. If you want to see how far this goes, meet me at the office parking garage tomorrow. Bring nothing. Just watch. The message replayed in my head until dawn. If you want to see how far this goes, meet me at the office parking garage tomorrow. Bring nothing. Just watch. By the time Gavin left for work, whistling like a man with no shadows, my decision was already made. I slipped into a plain jacket, tied my hair back and drove across town. My heart thudded with every mile. The parking garage was half empty, the concrete echoing with every step. Evelyn leaned against a pillar, a black coffee in one hand, her phone in the other. She didn't smile when she saw me. You came, she said softly. I need the truth, I answered. She nodded. Then keep your head down and your eyes open. We didn't wait long. A silver sedan pulled in. Gavin stepped out, jacket slung over his shoulder, phone pressed to his ear. A woman slid out from the passenger seat, tall, sleek, dressed in a skirt I'd never own. She laughed at something he said. He reached for her hand, casual, practiced. They walked toward the elevators together, close enough that their shoulders brushed. My breath caught, but Evelyn's hand pressed gently on my arm. Quiet. Watch. The elevator doors closed on their laughter. Evelyn exhaled. That's Lydia. He's been grooming her, not just personally, professionally. She's about to get promoted over people who've been here for years because Gavin pushed her into place. It's not just an affair, Calanthe. It's corruption. I swallowed hard, bile rising. How long? Over a year. And you're not the first wife he's done this to. She scrolled her phone and handed it to me. Dozens of emails filled the screen, many with Gavin's signature. Expense reports, calendar invites, hotel confirmations, each one a brick in the wall he had built to keep me outside. My hand shook as I scrolled. He had turned betrayal into a routine, betrayal into paperwork. Evelyn's voice was calm, measured. You need more than this, though. If you want justice, if you want revenge that sticks, you need to gather everything yourself. Witness it. Record it. Build a case no one can deny. That night, back home, I opened my journal and created a new section. At the top I wrote, Evidence. Then I listed what I had so far. Photographs of Gavin and Lydia in the garage. Receipts Evelyn had given me. Hotel invoices with his signature. Jewelry box and gift receipt. Witness testimony from Evelyn. The list steadied me. It turned pain into order, rage into a plan. Over the next week, I became a shadow in my own marriage. I smiled when Gavin looked, I nodded when he spoke, but inside I was writing, recording, storing every detail. When he left his phone unattended, I photographed text threads filled with excuses and late-night plans. When he claimed he was at board meetings, I drove by the restaurants Evelyn mentioned and caught sight of his car in valet lines. Twice I saw him walk in with Lydia, his hand low on her back, his laugh familiar and false. Each time I wrote the date. I logged the time. I saved the image. The more I gathered, the more I saw the pattern. Gifts billed to the company, hotel rooms justified as networking events, dinners marked as strategy sessions. He was not only betraying me, he was stealing from the business he claimed to build with honor. One night, I placed all the evidence across the dining table. Pages, photos, recordings. The story of his betrayal no longer felt like mine alone. It was now a case, a weapon, a future I could wield. But the silence between us was growing dangerous. Gavin had started watching me more closely. He asked where I went during the day. He glanced at my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. His arrogance was cracking, replaced by suspicion. And then came the slip. He stumbled into the kitchen late, the smell of whiskey thick on his clothes. He leaned against the counter, his voice slurred but sharp. "You're acting strange, Cal. Don't forget, I know every corner of this life. If you think you can outmaneuver me, you'll regret it." I didn't answer. I only closed my notebook slowly, meeting his glassy eyes with calm resolve, because the very next morning, Evelyn sent me a new message. Just 4 words. "He plans to announce." Attached was an agenda for an upcoming company gala. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "Special presentation, future partner, Lydia." The agenda Evelyn forwarded burned in my hands. Special presentation, future partner, Lydia. It wasn't enough for Gavin to betray me in shadows. He wanted to humiliate me under chandeliers, in front of his board, with applause echoing around him. He wanted Lydia on his arm while I stood in the corner, silent and discarded. But he had miscalculated. I was no longer the woman who swallowed silence like medicine. I was building an army of truth. I called Evelyn that evening. My voice was steady. "If he plans to make it public, then so will I. But I can't do this alone." She didn't hesitate. "Then let's bring people in who can stand with you." The first was Mira, my oldest friend. We hadn't spoken much in months. Gavin always found ways to make her feel unwelcome. But she had been at the last gala, and she had seen the way they laughed at me. When I told her what I had uncovered, her eyes blazed. "You're not going to whisper this," she said. "You're going to say it where they all hear you. And I'll make sure you have the stage." The second was Adrian, one of Gavin's colleagues. I had always thought him distant, but Evelyn insisted he had grown tired of covering for Gavin's excesses. I arranged to meet him in a quiet cafe. He arrived on time, shoulders heavy, eyes tired. "I know what he's been doing," Adrian said quietly. "Not just to you. To the company. He's diverting funds, rerouting contracts, pushing Lydia into place while others who deserve the role are sidelined. I have minutes from board meetings. Records. If this comes out, the board won't just doubt him, they'll remove him." I stared at the folder he slid across the table. Each page was another nail in Gavin's coffin. "Why risk yourself for me?" I asked. Adrian's expression tightened. "Because men like Gavin only stop when someone stops them. And because I'm tired of being silent." The third ally was someone I had almost forgotten. Lillian, an old friend from university who had become a lawyer. When I told her what I was gathering, she listened without judgment. Then she said something that echoed through me like a bell. "Calanthe, revenge is sweet, but justice is permanent. If you want this to stick, you need to do it lawfully, publicly, and precisely." She agreed to prepare my case. Not just the affair, but the financial misconduct, the corruption. She would build the structure that would ensure Gavin couldn't talk his way out. With these 3 beside me, Mira for access, Adrian for insider proof, Lillian for legality, and Evelyn as my informant, the plan took shape. We met in my living room, the table covered in documents. Photos of Gavin and Lydia. Receipts of jewelry and hotels. Contracts Adrian had pulled. Affidavits Evelyn drafted. Lillian sorted everything into categories. Affair. Financial fraud. Abuse of position. Mira leaned forward, eyes alight. "At the gala, when he steps onto that stage, you'll already have the microphone. We'll time it so his announcement becomes his exposure." Evelyn added, "And I can slip the altered presentation into the system. When the slides go up, it won't be his polished numbers. It will be the evidence." Lillian's tone was firm. "But you must remain calm. If you shout, they'll call you bitter. If you cry, they'll call you hysterical. But if you show them proof, document after document, they can't deny it." I looked at each of them in turn. For years he told me I was nothing. Tomorrow, he will learn what nothing becomes when it refuses to stay quiet. That night, I pulled the emerald dress from its hanger. Mira had chosen it for me, saying it would catch the light without being ostentatious. I tried it on and stood before the mirror. For the first time in years, I saw not the woman Gavin dismissed but the woman he underestimated. I whispered to my reflection, "He thinks he holds the stage. Tomorrow it's mine." Because just as I began to believe we were ready, a new message appeared on my phone. "If you try to expose him, I'll release photos that make it look like you're the one betraying him." And attached was an image of me and Adrian leaving the cafe together. The photo chilled me more than any receipt, more than any overheard whisper. It showed Adrian and me stepping out of the cafe, documents in hand. The caption: "If you try to expose him, I'll release photos that make it look like you're the one betraying him." It was calculated perfectly. One image, no context. Twisted the right way, Gavin could claim I had conspired with a colleague, maybe even that I was unfaithful. He would spin it and half the room might believe him. For a moment I almost faltered. Almost. But then I remembered Evelyn's voice. Make sure when you strike, there's no room for him to talk his way out. I called a meeting that night. My allies gathered in my living room once more. Mira pacing by the window, Adrian sitting with his arms crossed, Evelyn sipping coffee like it was armor, and Lillian already pulling out her notepad. I showed them the photo. The silence was heavy. Finally Mira hissed, "He's scared." This is desperation. Lillian's tone was precise. Which means we need to control the narrative before he tries. If he shows this photo, you will already have the truth on your side. Our job is to make sure his voice is the one drowned. Adrian leaned forward, his expression steady. I knew this was a risk. He suspects me. But if I stand beside you in public in front of the board, he won't be able to claim secrecy. It will look like what it is. An ally testifying, not a lover hiding. I nodded. Then we prepare. Not just slides. Not just papers. We prepare our voices. Lillian outlined the counterplan. Clara, Evelyn, would load the evidence into the presentation system, disguised under Gavin's file name. Mira would make sure I had the microphone at the critical moment. Adrian would stand openly as a witness, confirming every word I spoke. Lillian would prepare sealed copies of the documents, signed and dated, so even if Gavin tried to call them forgeries, they'd already be notarized. Revenge only works if it's clean, Lillian reminded me. If there's a shadow of doubt, he'll crawl through it. That night we rehearsed. Mira played the role of the skeptical board member. Adrian asked the sharp questions Gavin might throw. Evelyn corrected me when my voice trembled. And Lillian drilled the statement until it was muscle memory. You don't need to tell them every story, she said. You don't need to describe the pain. Let the evidence speak. Your strength will be in restraint. Calm as the knife he won't see coming. I practiced until my throat was raw. Until I could stand in front of them, lift the binder, and speak in a voice that did not break. After they left, I sat alone at the table, staring at the mountain of proof. My journal lay open beside it. I wrote, "He thinks threats will silence me. He doesn't realize silence was my prison," and I broke out. The next morning Gavin acted like nothing had changed. He kissed my cheek, poured coffee, asked about dinner plans. His smile was too polished, his eyes too sharp. He knew I had seen too much. He was already preparing his defense. When he left, I touched the emerald dress waiting in the closet. Tomorrow it would not be fabric. It would be armor. But that night, as I zipped the binder of evidence closed, another text arrived. This time not anonymous. It was from Gavin. One line. "Wear something beautiful tomorrow. You'll want to look good when I introduce Lydia." I stared at the message, the taste of iron in my mouth. He thought tomorrow was his triumph. He had no idea he was walking into the night that would end him. The gala hall glittered like a palace. Chandeliers spilled gold light over tables dressed in linen. The air humming with violins and laughter sharpened by ambition. This was Gavin's world. A theater of mirrors where charm mattered more than truth. I walked in on his arm, emerald dress brushing the marble. My chin lifted though my chest burned. He whispered, "You look perfect tonight," as though he were gifting me a kindness. He did not see the folder tucked beneath Mira's jacket, the silent signals Clara gave from across the room, or Adrian already stationed near the stage. The plan was simple. At the height of Gavin's speech, Mira would pass me the microphone. Clara would load the corrupted presentation. I would reveal the evidence, clean and undeniable. But plans rarely unfold neatly. At 8 sharp, Gavin took the stage. The applause was automatic, practiced. He looked out over the room like a king surveying his subjects. His voice was velvet and steel. "Tonight," he said, "we celebrate the future. A future built on loyalty, vision, and leadership." My hands clenched at my sides. Loyalty. The word tasted like poison. He gestured toward the projector. I have the honor of announcing a new chapter for this company. A partner who has shown relentless dedication. A partner who embodies our future. The cue. Mira shifted toward the sound booth. Clara moved to insert the files. Adrian's gaze locked on me steady. And then the pivot struck. The board chair stood suddenly, raising a hand. Before you continue, Gavin, we have a matter to address. The crowd stilled. Gavin's smile faltered. This was not in his script. The chair's voice was even but firm. Concerns have reached us about financial discrepancies, conflicts of interest, and personal misconduct. Out of fairness, we will allow you to speak to these concerns before your announcement. Gasps rippled across the room. Gavin's mask cracked for half a heartbeat, then reassembled. Concerns, he laughed. Baseless rumors, whispered by those envious of my success. He glanced sharply at me. His suspicion flared like a warning flare. Mira froze mid-step. Clara's fingers trembled over the laptop. Adrian's jaw tightened. Our plan was unraveling before it began. If Gavin took control now, he would spin the narrative before we could act. I felt the air grow heavy. My moment was slipping away. Gavin leaned closer to the microphone, voice lowering into practiced sincerity. I have always given this company my all. I have sacrificed my time, my family, even my health for its future. These accusations are the product of bitterness. And unfortunately, his eyes locked on me, they come from my own household. The crowd gasped. His voice rose, booming across the hall. My wife has conspired with colleagues against me. She has been seen in secret meetings. She is not here to support me, but to destroy me. Whispers spread like wildfire. Faces turned toward me. In a flash, I saw how the photo could be used, the one of Adrian and me leaving the cafe. To them, it could look like betrayal. Could look like proof. Mira's lips parted in shock. Clara shook her head furiously, mouthing, "No, don't let him." Adrian took a step forward, ready to shield me, but hesitation gnawed at me. If I moved too soon, it would look defensive. If I stayed still, his lies would take root. And then Gavin made his mistake. He clicked to the first slide of his polished presentation. Instead of Lydia's glowing headshot, the screen blinked, froze, and loaded Clara's altered file. The first email appeared, huge, impossible to ignore. His own words projected on the wall. "Ensure Joan is not copied. She reflects poorly on me." The room erupted. Murmurs, gasps, phones raised to capture it. Gavin spun toward the screen, his voice cracking. "That is not mine, it's fabricated." But the damage was done. The board chair leaned closer to read, his face hardening. The spotlight shifted. The silence before my strike had arrived, but it was chaos, not order. Because in that chaos, Gavin lunged for the laptop, tearing the cable free. The screen went black. He shouted into the microphone. "Lies! All lies!" And every eye turned to me, waiting to see if I would crumble or rise. The silence pressed down on me like a weight. Gavin stood center stage, red-faced, clutching the disconnected cable like a sword. His voice cracked with fury. "Lies! Someone planted this. My wife has tried to ruin me." Every head in the room turned toward me. Dozens of eyes. Some wide with shock, some narrow with suspicion, some already filled with hunger for scandal. This was it. The moment when years of humiliation either collapsed into dust or turned into fire. Mira's voice hissed in my ear. "Go, Calanthe. Now." I moved forward, my emerald dress catching the light, my heels clicking like a drumbeat. Gavin's glare sliced through me, but I did not falter. I reached the stage steps and extended my hand. The announcer hesitated, then passed me the microphone. My grip was steady. I lifted it to my lips. My voice rang clear. "For years my husband told you I was nothing. Tonight I will let his own words prove otherwise." Gasps rippled. Gavin lunged toward me, but Adrian stepped between us, a wall of calm strength. Gavin froze, forced to retreat as cameras snapped. Clara, hands shaking but sure, reconnected the laptop. The screen blinked, then loaded the next file. Another email. Another damning sentence in Gavin's clipped tone. "Decline her RSVP. She embarrasses me." The room erupted in whispers. I raised the microphone again. "He told you he sacrificed for this company. Here are the receipts that prove otherwise." Lillian rose from her seat, binder in hand. She walked toward the board chair and laid down notarized copies page after page. Hotel bills, jewelry receipts, dinners billed as company strategy sessions that were nothing more than affairs with Lydia. The next slide flashed. A contract rerouted into Lydia's name, Gavin's signature bold at the bottom. Adrian spoke, his voice steady. I was there when he pushed these through. He manipulated votes. He twisted the process. He betrayed not just his wife, but every single person who trusted him. The crowd gasped louder now. Phones were lifted high. Some board members looked furious. Others looked ashamed. The air buzzed like electricity, sharp and hot. Gavin's mask crumbled. He shouted, his voice cracking. This is all a performance. She is jealous. Bitter. I cut him off, my voice cold. If I am bitter, it is because you taught me bitterness. If I am jealous, it is because you forced me to watch you build lies while you told me to stay small. But tonight, Gavin, the lies are yours to carry, not mine. The next slide appeared, audio this time. His recorded voice. She is nothing. She will never rise. She is invisible. The hall went dead silent. Every person stared at Gavin as his own arrogance betrayed him louder than I ever could. He staggered back, eyes darting wildly, searching for an escape. But there was none. I lowered the microphone, letting the silence stretch, letting the truth settle like a hammer blow. Then I said quietly, this is what nothing looks like when it refuses to stay quiet. The room erupted, shouts, gasps, camera flashes like lightning. Gavin lunged again, but security moved fast, seizing his arms, pulling him back as he kicked against the inevitable. The board chair's voice thundered over the chaos. Enough! The evidence is clear. Gavin Hale is suspended effective immediately, pending removal. The company will not tolerate this conduct. Applause broke. Not polite, not hesitant. Applause like a wave, fierce and undeniable. I handed the microphone back, my chest rising and falling like I had run through fire. Gavin was dragged out screaming, his words dissolving into nothing as the doors slammed behind him. Because just as the applause began to fade, the board chair turned to me. His voice carried across the room, steady and final. And as for the future, this company will move forward with Calanthe Hale as partner. The board chair's words echoed like a bell. This company will move forward with Calanthe Hale as partner. For a moment I stood frozen. Applause thundered through the ballroom, lights glaring hot, faces turned toward me. The same faces that once slid past me with smirks now watched with wide eyes. Some with admiration, others with fear. I had been invisible. Now they could not look away. Behind the applause, Gavin's shouts faded as security dragged him from the hall. His voice broke, no longer the smooth velvet of a leader but the ragged howl of a man stripped of his mask. The doors slammed shut, cutting him off like the end of a bad play. Lydia stood near the stage, pale under the chandeliers. Her red dress clung like armor, but her lips trembled. She looked at me, then at the crowd, then at the exit where Gavin had disappeared. Her confidence cracked. When a board member turned and asked sharply, "Did you know about this misconduct?" She faltered, stammered, and finally shook her head. No one believed her. She stumbled out, cameras following like vultures. Mira was the first to reach me. She gripped my hand so tight it hurt, her eyes wet. "You did it," she whispered. "You burned the cage down." Clara stood a little behind her, shoulders trembling with relief. "I thought he would stop us. I thought." She broke off, her voice choking. I pulled her into a quick embrace. "You were braver than you know," I said. Adrian stepped forward, his presence calm, solid, unshakable. He didn't smile, but the nod he gave me carried more weight than words. He had stood in the line of fire with me, and that mattered more than I could say. Reporters surged forward, voices overlapping. "Calanthe, did you know about the corruption? How long have you had the evidence? What will you do as partner?" Their microphones thrust toward me like spears. For a heartbeat I wanted to shrink, to step back into the shadows I had lived in for years. But then I remembered Gavin's words, "She is nothing. She will never rise." I lifted my chin. My voice was calm. "What I will do is simple. I will bring respect back to this company. I will ensure that loyalty means truth, not lies. Tonight was not about me. Tonight was about showing that arrogance collapses under the weight of its own corruption. Cameras flashed like lightning. The reporters surged harder, but the board chair raised his hand for silence. That is all for tonight. Mrs. Hale has spoken. The board will issue a formal statement tomorrow. The crowd broke into fragments. Some people hurried out, whispering frantically into phones. Others lingered, watching me with a mix of awe and caution. A few even came to shake my hand, their earlier dismissiveness replaced with nervous respect. I stepped down from the stage. My heels clicked against the marble, each step echoing like a declaration. I wasn't invisible anymore. But then Lydia appeared again at the far end of the hall. She didn't approach me directly, but as I passed she leaned close enough to whisper, her voice a hiss. Enjoy this moment, Calanthe. Gavin isn't finished. Men like him always find a way back. Her perfume stung my throat. I didn't flinch. I only met her gaze, steady and cold. Then when he comes back, he'll find me waiting. Mira tugged me away before Lydia could answer. Outside, the night air was sharp and clean, as if the storm had broken and washed everything clear. But I knew this wasn't the end. Gavin's empire had collapsed in front of everyone. But a man like him would claw, even from the ruins. Because when I climbed into the waiting car, my phone buzzed. A new message and signed but unmistakably his. You think you won tonight. Tomorrow I will remind you who I am. The morning after the gala, the city hummed with my name. I woke to headlines on every feed, my phone buzzing non-stop. Gala scandal. Gavin Hale exposed in public meltdown. Invisible wife no more. Calanthe Hale named partner. Board suspends CEO amid affair and corruption allegations. For years I had walked through this world unseen. Now I could not turn on the radio or open an app without hearing my name. Mira arrived with coffee and an armful of newspapers. She spread them across my table like trophies. Look at this, she said, eyes shining. You're everywhere. Your face. Your words. They're calling you the woman who turned silence into fire. I traced the headlines with my fingers. A part of me still struggled to believe it. It feels unreal, I whispered. She grinned. It's very real. Gavin is finished. But Gavin was not finished. By noon he released a video statement. His face looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Still, his voice tried to weave the charm he had always relied on. I have been the victim of a smear campaign, he said. My wife, manipulated by jealous colleagues, twisted documents, staged recordings. Our marriage became a weapon used against me. The truth will come out. He ended with venom. Calanthe Hale may have stolen my stage last night, but she cannot steal my legacy. The video spread quickly, dividing opinions. Some called him desperate. Others muttered about conspiracy. My phone filled with questions from journalists hungry for a response. Lillian called me before I could spiral. He's bluffing, she said firmly. The evidence we submitted is notarized and time-stamped. His video will collapse under scrutiny. Do not respond. Let the proof speak. And she was right. By evening, Evelyn sent me another article. A reporter had already compared Gavin's claims to the documented evidence. The result was devastating for him. The receipts matched, the audio was authenticated, and the hotel charges had witnesses attached. His story didn't hold. But the fallout wasn't just his. When I walked into the office building that night, the same one where I had once lingered in lobbies like an unwelcome guest, the atmosphere shifted. People who had once ignored me now stepped aside. Some nodded in respect. Some looked away in shame. I climbed the stairs not as Gavin's wife, but as Calanthe Hale, interim partner. In the boardroom, the chair greeted me warmly. You proved courage last night, he said. Now prove leadership. We need steady hands to rebuild. I took my seat at the long polished table, the same table where Gavin had called me nothing. My hands shook, but only for a second. Then I set them flat and steady on the wood. I belonged there now. Yet outside the boardroom, Gavin still clawed. Lydia disappeared, but rumors swirled she was negotiating a tell-all. Anonymous blogs popped up, spinning wild stories about me and Adrian. Each one tried to paint me as the schemer. Mira showed me one headline with disgust. Wife or wolf? Did Calanthe orchestrate husband's fall for power? For a moment fear prickled again. Was I strong enough to endure not just the fight, but the smear afterward? Adrian's words steadied me. You cannot control their whispers. Only your truth. You already won the war. Do not let their noise convince you otherwise. That night, alone in my bedroom, I opened my journal one more time. On a blank page I wrote, "They called me nothing. Yesterday I became everything. Tomorrow I will prove it was not luck, it was strength." Because just as I set the pen down, my phone buzzed again. A final message from Gavin sent at midnight. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me." Gavin's last message blinked on my phone like a threat carved in neon. If I'm going down, you're coming with me. But by the time the sun rose, it was already too late for him. The board released its official report within 24 hours. Every receipt, every email, every witness statement was validated by independent auditors. The audio recordings were confirmed authentic. His expenses, his hotel stays, his contracts with Lydia, each piece was tied directly to him. The evidence was not mine anymore. It belonged to the public. Gavin tried to fight one last time. He filed an injunction, desperate to stop the board from stripping him of his position. But the judge reviewed the evidence and laughed him out of court. His accounts were frozen. His resignation was forced. His reputation, once gleaming, was reduced to ashes. I didn't attend his final hearing. I didn't need to. I already knew the outcome. I had already seen him fall. Instead, I spent that morning in the office he once guarded like a kingdom. The nameplate on the door had been replaced. Calanthe Hale, partner. I ran my fingers over the letters not because I needed validation, but because they were proof that the cage had been broken. I sat at the table where he once smirked and said I didn't belong. My voice carried now, steady and sure. And when I spoke, people listened. Not because I shouted, but because the truth had carried me here. But revenge is not only about destroying the one who betrayed you. It is about rebuilding yourself from the pieces they tried to shatter. Gavin wanted me to be invisible. Instead, I became undeniable. Mira sat beside me that evening, sipping coffee as we looked out over the city. "Do you realize what you did?" she asked softly. "Yes," I answered. I turned his arrogance into my proof. I turned his betrayal into my weapon. And I learned that silence can be powerful when you choose how to break it. She smiled. "You're not nothing anymore, Calanthe. You're everything." That night, I wrote one final entry in my journal. He said I would never rise. Today I rose. He said I was invisible. Today I was seen. He thought betrayal would break me. Today it built me. I closed the book not to forget but to mark the end. And now I speak directly to you, the one listening to my story. If you have ever been dismissed, betrayed, or silenced, remember this. Their cruelty is not the end. Betrayal may feel like fire on your skin, but fire also forges steel. You don't need to scream to take your power back. You don't need to break the law or lose yourself in rage. You only need to gather your truth, protect it, and release it when the moment is right. Revenge does not have to be reckless. It can be deliberate, lawful, devastating in its clarity. My name is Calanthe. My husband betrayed me, mocked me, and thought I would remain silent forever. Instead, I caught him red-handed, and I made sure the world would never forget it. This was my story. If it gave you strength, stay with me. Here, betrayal always finds justice. Here, arrogance always collapses. And here, silence becomes the sharpest weapon of all. Subscribe and join me again, because there will always be another story where the one who thought they were untouchable finally learns their lesson.